He's a good-looking boy. Do you mind if I keep this picture?
Big night plan. You should have a seat right there.
No.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story on adults who try to meet teens online. You see how this looks, right?
Some characters get the boot because their story's over. Some get replaced because the actor doesn't want to come back. Then there's John Connor. Connor wasn't accidentally destroyed. Hollywood deliberately erased him and replaced him. That's the important distinction. Because Hollywood knew exactly who John Connor was. They knew he was supposed to become the military leader who saves humanity from Skynet. They knew Kyle Reese traveled back through time because of his ass. They knew Sarah Connor spent her entire life preparing his ass. They knew the Terminator was sent back to protect his ass. They knew the entire mythology was built around this kid becoming a legend. And then, movie by movie, they started taking that mythology apart. First they made John afraid of becoming the hero. Then they pushed him into the background. Then they turned him into the villain. And finally, killed his ass. And this is where the shit goes down. Hollywood didn't replace John Connor with an equally iconic character. It replaced him, and the audience didn't follow. So let's go back to the beginning. Because the destruction of John Connor wasn't one bad creative decision. It was a process. And it tells us a lot about what happened to blockbuster storytelling along the way. The original Terminator builds John Connor entirely through mythology. We don't see his ass. He's a name from the future, a legendary resistance leader, a man who defeats Skynet. The man whose existence is so dangerous that Skynet sends a ruthless cybernetic infiltration unit through time to murder his moms before he's even born. That's a hell of an introduction for a character. Then Terminator 2 gives us the kid, and he's exactly what the movie needs him to be. John's sarcastic, he's rebellious, he's angry, he's a delinquent who doesn't understand why his mother has spent the entire childhood preparing him for the end of the world. And underneath all that, we can see the future leader. The most important relationship in the movie isn't that Terminator protecting John. It's John teaching the Terminator. The machine understands how to kill. John teaches it why killing is wrong. Terminator becomes more human. John becomes more responsible. That's an actual character arc, man. And by the end, Judgment Day has been prevented. The future is open. John Connor gets a chance to become something other than the product of a prophecy. It's a powerful ending. And Hollywood looked at that ending and eventually decided, hell no. Terminator 3 is where the deconstruction begins. John Connor's an adult now. This should be the payoff. This is the guy Kyle Reese told us about. The future commander, the leader of the resistance, the man humanity will follow into the apocalypse. Instead, he's hiding. He's homeless. He's an anxious drifter living off the grid avoiding his destiny. And there ain't nothing wrong with a damaged hero. The problem is that T3 doesn't use John's damage to build towards something greater. It makes him smaller. The legendary future leader becomes a man trying desperately to avoid becoming the legendary future leader. Then the movie reveals Judgment Day is still coming. So the victory of T2 is reduced to a delay. John doesn't get to complete the journey. He gets to wait for the next movie. And that establishes the pattern. The franchise is no longer focused on showing John become the legend we were promised. Instead, each sequel increasingly diminishes his importance, pushing him further away from the center of his own mythology. And it gets fucking worse. Terminator Salvation should have been John's movie. This is it, the future war. Skynet has won. Humanity is fighting for survival. John Connor is finally becoming the resistance leader we've heard about since '84. The audience waited for decades for this. What does Hollywood do? John Connor isn't really the protagonist. The dude from Avatar is. The movie gives him the mystery, the emotional journey, the big revelation, and John Connor gets the scraps of his own mythology.
See, now that's some bullshit.
You finally make the movie about the future we all been talking about, and then you give the central character's dramatic arc to somebody who doesn't exist in the 3 previous movies. John Connor is now a supporting character in his own destiny. The legend ain't killed, but he's getting pushed out of his own story. Then we get Terminator Genisys. John Connor doesn't merely become less important, he becomes the villain. The man who represents humanity's resistance against the machines becomes one of the machines. John Connor, the future savior of humanity, becomes a fucking Terminator. Because apparently the one thing the franchise hadn't tried was taking its central heroic symbol and handing him over to Skynet. That's not a minor change, that's a reversal of the entire mythology. Sarah gets elevated into the hyper-competent warrior, John gets corrupted. The mother becomes the badass, the son becomes the problem. And suddenly, the original character the original movies told us was the future is no longer the future we should care about. The franchise is moving on. It's looking for a new center. And Dark Fate makes the decision permanent. Terminator Dark Fate doesn't sideline John. It doesn't corrupt John. It doesn't deconstruct John. It puts 2 caps in his ass. Terminator finds him on a beach and shoots him. That's it. The character who was once the central reason for the entire franchise is dead before the movie even gets started. And what happens next? They don't build on John Connor's legacy. Hollywood takes it out of his dead-ass hands. The franchise ganks everything we loved and gives his future to Danny Ramos. Gives Kyle Reese's gig to Grace without the sexy, and gives Sarah a reason to reject motherhood. Shit, she could have an autistic baby right now with her old-ass uterus. And we're supposed to pretend the original hero never mattered. That's the key. The movie didn't continue John Connor's legacy. It killed the man, transferred his destiny to a lady of color, and expected us to pretend nothing's wrong here. By the time Dark Fate arrived in 2019, Hollywood had spent years pushing a new franchise formula. The old male hero wasn't supposed to remain the center of the story. He was supposed to make room. And John Connor was the perfect character to sacrifice, because his entire identity was built around an old-fashioned idea of heroism. A boy becoming a man, earning authority, leading an army, and saving humanity. That's the entire fucking architecture of the franchise. But instead of asking how to make that mythology bigger, Hollywood increasingly treated John himself as the obstacle. Then the franchise moves forward with a new female resistance leader at the center. That's not a coincidence in the structure of the story. It's the point of the story. John Connor isn't allowed to become the man the franchise promised us. He's removed so the franchise can make a woman in the future. And that's where the cultural shift matters. The issue isn't whether female characters can carry a franchise. Shit, Sarah Connor already proved that. The issue is whether Hollywood needed to destroy an established male hero in order to make room for them. With Dark Fate, the answer was hell yeah. John Connor doesn't get to age as a legend. He doesn't get to lead the future war. He doesn't get to become the commander Kyle Reese described. He's murdered so the next generation can exist without him. And once you understand that, the entire post-T2 history of John Connor starts looking less like creative incompetence and a lot more like deliberate demolition. Here's where the strategy runs into a serious problem. You can replace a character on paper, but you can't order the audience to transfer its attachment. John Connor had decades of mythology behind him. People knew the name, they knew the story, they knew why Sarah fought, they knew why Kyle Reese died, they knew why Skynet wanted him dead. They knew what he was supposed to become. Danny Ramos didn't have that. If you're going to move the character the audience has been following for decades, you better have something extraordinary waiting on the other side. Otherwise, you're not creating a new legend. You're asking the audience to forget the old one. And audiences are perfectly capable of saying, "Hell no!" And this is where the argument gets brutally simple. The Terminator franchise kept insisting it didn't need John Connor, but it never managed to create a replacement with the same cultural weight. T3 was still a major commercial success. Salvation made hundreds of millions worldwide but fell short of expectations. Genisys made substantial money globally, yet failed to establish a sustainable new direction. And then came Dark Fate, a movie built around removing John Connor and moving the mythology forward with a bunch of boss ladies. It grossed roughly $261 million worldwide against a reported production budget around $185 million, before marketing. This ain't the triumph of a successful replacement strategy. That's a franchise in trouble. And this is the part Hollywood should have learned. You can tell audiences the character isn't important anymore. You can tell them there's a new hero. You can tell them forget the old mythology, but the audience gets the final vote. And eventually, they stop showing up. John Connor was supposed to be the future, not metaphorically, literally. The entire Terminator mythology was built around the idea that this boy could grow into a man who saves humanity. And instead of telling that story, the franchise spent decades dismantling. 4 movies, 4 different ways of saying John Connor doesn't matter anymore. And here's the irony. The franchise kept changing the future. But every new future was less interesting than the one we were originally promised. Because John Connor wasn't the problem, he was the hook. He was the reason the story mattered. You don't create a new legend by destroying the old one. You create a new legend by giving the audience a reason to love someone new. Hollywood never solved that problem. It simply removed John and hoped the audience would follow. They didn't. John Connor wasn't accidentally destroyed. He was deliberately erased. And once the hero was abandoned, the audience eventually abandoned the franchise. Skynet couldn't kill the future. Hollywood did. And the saddest part, it didn't replace John Connor with a new legend. It replaced him with an empty space where a legend was supposed to be.
Hey man, you down?
like and subscribe. Catch you on the flip side, flapjacks.